Welcome to your daily dose of Mindful Moments and this new Feminine Awakening series, where we're celebrating women and all your ebbs and flows. It's time now to reawaken the feminine energy. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Mindful Moment. We are in our Feminine Awakening series, and today is about healing the feminine. And this part of the series is really having a discussion about certain topics that can help us heal our feminine energy and heal our feminine just wounds that maybe we've been giving ourselves or society gave us. So it's time to address these areas and start to heal them. So I'm going to be sharing some tips on today's particular topic for you to start implementing right away. So that's going to be the practice that we'll use with today's episode. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So we're going to be talking about the fear of boundaries. So I know many of us have a fear of setting boundaries because we don't really understand boundaries. We think boundaries is a bad thing. So I'm going to quickly address that and then also give you some tips on how you can start working with things around us, the tools that we have around us to start setting healthy boundaries. So boundaries is really important, especially talking about the feminine energy. Because one, as women, especially women who identify as women, who are women, it's hard for us to say no because we want to be so giving and nurturing and loving all of the time. And setting boundaries does not mean that we don't get to do that. But we tend to give so much as women to our partners, our kids, our work, our career, our communities, and we forget to pour back into ourselves. And that's ultimately why boundaries is so important. But we don't necessarily need to even label some of these things as boundaries, but really is thinking about it of just doing things that fill your cup so that you can go back out into the world and give the way that you love to give, but you also have to be open to give to yourself and also receive from the world as well in a good way. So thinking about this fear of boundaries, a lot of people have fear around a particular word, and I'm going to share that word with you now, and that word is no. So we think that by saying no, we are saying something bad, that we are not being able to give ourselves, or that we don't care about the person or the thing or whatever is causing us to make the decision of saying no. And the way that I like to explain this idea of boundaries and when we use the word no or even yes is looking at it from a different perspective, which is this. When we set boundaries and we decide whether we want to do something or not do something, the way that I look at it now is if I'm saying no, one, it's honoring something within me that for whatever reason, that's the answer I need to give. It could be because I already have so much on my plate already. Maybe because I don't feel equipped to take on what I'm being asked. Or maybe it's just not in alignment of my values or morals. And so when we say no, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just doesn't mean that that's meant for us right now. And no doesn't necessarily always just mean no and that's it. It could also just mean not right now. Right? And I also like to think about it like this, that when we're saying no to something, it also means that we are giving the opportunity for someone else to say yes. Just because a question, idea, opportunity, or whatever is being presented to us and we're feeling that no come on, doesn't mean that we're rejecting anything, doesn't mean that we don't care about the person, doesn't mean that we aren't grateful. It just means for whatever reason, that's not meant for us right now. But it doesn't mean that it's not meant for us later on. Right? It could just be a sign that what we're asking for is coming and we're not ready for it right now, but it's right there when we're ready for it. And also the thought of saying no, giving the opportunity for someone else to say yes. Because sometimes, we may be the person a lot of people go to for certain things, and it's easier for them because we've said yes so many times for them to come to us. And this time it's like, no, I'm not able to do that at this time for whatever reasons. And here's the thing, let me just make a quick disclaimer. We don't have to explain ourselves. We can just let them know it's, not going to be the right time, or no, I can't do that right now. And so that gives them an opportunity where they now have to go look for someone else to ask that question of, or that favor of. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable for them. And so we're giving them an opportunity to get out of their comfort zone and maybe connect with somebody else they would not have connected with, right? So when we think about it from this like bigger picture, saying no is so beautiful, because on the flip side, when we say yes to something, now I want you to think about this. Have you ever said yes to something that you immediately was like, I shouldn't have said yes? Like you knew it was no, but like yes came out of your mouth because of that fear of that boundary, because of that fear of saying no, right? And now you've committed to something that you know you don't want to do, that you know that you already have enough on your plate for, that you knew that you wanted to rest and slow down and do something else. And now you've just added this to your plate. And usually what happens when we say yes is we immediately feel regret. We immediately aren't excited about it. And not only do we feel regret, but now we kind of feel resentful to the person that asked us whatever they asked us that we knew that we didn't want to do, but we said yes to. And really, we shouldn't feel resentful to that person. We should, again, have had that healthy boundary for ourselves so that we could respect and honor ourselves, but also respect and honor that person, because now that person is not getting all of you, right? They're getting that guilty version of you that, oh, okay, I said I would do it. Now I have to do it. And that's not right for you or right for them. So when you think about it in this way, right, this yes and no that we are giving out, we can better set a boundary for ourselves because it's honoring ourselves and honoring others. Okay, so this fear of boundaries is going to take time for us to get over, and that's completely okay. But start to work with it and really be aware when we're starting to feel the no and the yes, and start to honor it and what that looks like. So I want to give you some quick tips on how you can set healthy boundaries that no one has to know about. Okay. So, or if they do know about it, it's kind of like, you don't have to like verbally say these things. None of these tips you'll have to verbally say no or yes to. These are just ways of you setting boundaries that people can automatically opt into. And some of them you may already do, and some of them maybe you didn't think about using in ways that I'm going to share with you. So let's dive into these tips. So the first one is to utilize our devices, like our phone, our iPads, in the ways that we can set certain notifications that help us with these boundaries. Now, iPhone, and I'm not sure about Android, but I work with iPhone. So iPhone has different ways to put our phone on these settings where we can have a focus on, we can have do not disturb. And it really honestly started with the do not disturb while we were driving, which was perfect. We definitely should have a boundary during that time, right? We don't need to be on our phones while we're driving. But now it has stepped up to being able to put on these different notifications throughout our day, and only having certain emails come through during certain times, having, only certain people come through during certain times that we want to make sure have access to us, like our kids and our spouses, right? And our loved ones and our family. And we can also set just a full-on do not disturb, right? So no one comes through maybe just for 5 minutes or whatever it is. So learning to use our devices and set these healthy boundaries is a way to kind of get into this if you're not really comfortable setting boundaries in a more outward way yet. And anytime I see that someone has that do not disturb or has silenced their notifications, I'm like, awesome. I'm like rooting them on. And I also just know, right? It's an instant knowing of like, hey, I'm going to send this text, right? Because either I'm replying back to them, or I want to get in touch with them for something, or maybe I am asking them a favor or inviting them to something or whatever it is. And I know that by sending this text, they're not going to get it right away, or they're not going to look at it right away. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't send the text, right? It just means that I know already that they've set up their parameters to not receive anything in this moment for whatever reasons that is none of my business. But I know that they're going to get the text at some point, and at some point they're going to reply. And most of the time when we send out a text, right, unless we are having a full-on conversation with that person, I know for me, if I receive a text, I don't answer all of them right away. I kind of go back to them and answer accordingly, or I maybe sometimes do check the text. And if it's not something important or something I need to respond right then and there, I go back to it later on and make sure to get to it, right? So this is a way to just play with the devices, with the technology that we already have in the palm of our hand to start setting those healthy boundaries. So going into tip number 2 is with our emails. So I actually use the away message in my emails, even when I'm not quote unquote on vacation, right? This started to be used years ago when we started using email the way we do now and setting these notifications or away messages when we're on vacation or we're not in the office. But I go ahead and set this at all times so that if any point someone emails me and I'm not, say, technically on vacation, that I'll just say, hey, I'll get back to you within the, next few days or the next couple hours. And then I leave a nice quote, something inspiring, like, hey, when I get back into the office, I'll definitely get back to you within a certain amount of time. And this is a healthy boundary that I realized I really loved, because I feel like we all, when we get an email, we feel like we need to reply right away. We need to get to it. And yes, some emails do need our attention, quicker than others, but we're all receiving emails all the time. And this just gives a little buffer for us to have the opportunity to, yes, focus on the emails we really need to get to, and then gives us a little buffer for the ones that don't need our attention right away, to give us a little time to get to them when we have a little bit more time to really pay attention, be present, be intentional with that email. Because if it doesn't need our attention, it doesn't mean that we want to ignore it or ignore that person. It just means that, I have other things I'm working on that do need my attention right now, and I'll get to that when I have just that a little bit more free time. And that just gives you the opportunity to feel okay with not feeling like you need to get right back to them, or, you're proving that, that because you don't have an away message that you're on vacation or away from the office, that you're not still technically away, right? Like, you are away. Maybe you're away just for your lunch break, or you're away for half the day. So by having that message go out all the time, you don't need to explain yourself, as I mentioned earlier, every little step you're taking. Hey, I'm on vacation now. Hey, I stepped away for lunch. Hey, I did this. No, just one message all the time going, I got your message. I'll get back to you. And by the way, you're awesome if you haven't been told yet. And that's it, right? So that's tip number 2. The final tip that I want to share with you that has been a game changer, and I know a lot of people use it, and if you're not using it, or if you're not using it as regularly, then I encourage you to do so. And this is using Calendly. Calendly is another healthy boundary of being able to share your time with others, right? So you can set up Calendly or any other type of email or calendar linking, meeting links, but Calendly is very popular. I can't even think of others. I know other systems have that as an additional part, but Calendly focuses on this. And what I love about this is the opportunity to be able to go in on the backside of this program and say what days you are available, and also not only the days you're available, but you can set time parameters. Like, hey, on Mondays, I'm available from 11 to 2. Tuesdays, I'm not available. Wednesdays, I'm back available from, 11 to 2, and so on and so forth, right? So it's a really amazing tool that when people want to meet with you for, whatever reasons, I own a business. So there's, potential clients that want to meet, my actual clients that want to meet, friends that want to meet, which is all great. And I want to meet with everybody, and everyone's equal and the same. But I also have to do work. I also have to take time for myself, take time for my loved ones. So this is a perfect way for me to be like, yes, awesome. I want to meet with you. Here's my Calendly. And, you go ahead and choose a date and time that also works with you, that works within the parameter of the time I have set. And again, it's a healthy boundary, and everyone knows it. And it's become so just part of our norm that people don't usually, give me any backlash for wanting to use this system. And if they do, sometimes I go like, hey, like if you can just use the Calendly, it's better so that we don't have to have that back and forth. Like, are you available on Tuesday? And sometimes we have to do this with maybe certain friends or family members, things like that. But at least there is these different systems and programs that are either free or very inexpensive that we can use to set these healthy boundaries so that we can get out of this fear of boundaries and start to heal that part of ourselves. Because the whole idea of feminine energy is being in flow, being able to slow down and surrender and be intuitive more and be creative more. And if we're saying yes to everything that we don't want to say yes to, if we're, putting too much on our calendar, if we're, feeling this need to respond to everything, we're not able to tap into that feminine energy. We're actually going into that masculine energy all the time, which I've explained throughout this series, is that go, go, go energy, which is amazing. We need it, but we also need to slow down, surrender, be with ourselves, be within our feminine energy, and take things just a little bit more at a different pace. And these are the ways that we can do so in a healthy way that isn't, putting out to the world too much like, hey, don't bother me, right? In its own subtle way it is. And we're using things that everyone kind of is aware of and is also using. So basically, at some point, it's just the systems talking to each other, right? And setting up the times that we can go to our meetings or the times we can answer our emails and things like that. And the times that we can respond back to text messages and phone calls and all the things. So let me know in the comments, was this helpful? Was this a reminder? Are you doing these things? Were some of these things like, oh my gosh, she's right, I need to go in and like start using these things again. They were so helpful. Or maybe is this your first time hearing about any of these ways for you to set healthy boundaries? I would love for you to share in the comments, and any questions, or also what are you doing to set healthy boundaries, right? Maybe there's some tips that you feel called to share that you can put in the comments that others can see and I can see as well, as a way to add these to our boundary toolkit. So share that in the comments. And I just want to say thank you so much for showing up for you today. And we'll end it here, my friends. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for another mindful moment here in the Feminine Awakening series. Namaste. If you enjoyed today's practice and you're not yet part of the Mind Feel Motion community, subscribe today for more daily mindfulness.